Hello, welcome to episode 28 of Aico TV. My name is Matt Powell.
And my name's Lizzie Williams, and we'll take a look at what's coming up today. First up, we'll be discussing the 22-mile challenge that will take place on the 7th of May.
Next up, we'll be rejoining the CIH Ideas Lab with Tony Boyle for part 3.
Finally, our product development executive, Sam Marston, will be introducing the new 140E series.
And as always, we'll finish up with an FAQ this week by Dave Jennings on a deaf and hard of hearing kit.
First up, our community liaison, Jane Pritchard, will be joining various businesses to discuss the mountain bike challenge, which we are proud to be sponsors of.
Hi, I'm Jane Pritchard, community liaison at Aico, and we're delighted to be launching the Borderlands Mountain Bike Challenge for 2022 here at Aico today. And I'm joined by some very special guests. We have Tim Gray, who's the Managing Director of Dairy Pack. We have James, who's the owner of Mule Cycle Shop in Oswestry, and also Jonathan, who's a member of the Rotary. So, yeah, I want to know a little bit more about this challenge. I mean, we're all involved. We're all, we're sponsoring and we're heavily involved in the event this year. So, Tim, can you tell me a little bit about the event and how Dairy Pack have been involved over the years?
Yes. Well, thank you, firstly, for allowing us to come today. The ride has been going since the early 90s. It was actually the brainchild of my late father, Brian Gray, who was an avid cyclist, but also a Rotarian in Oswestry. And he thought it'd be a good idea to run a charity bike ride and raise some funds for the local air ambulance and other local charities. And I think this is the 28th running of it. Yeah. So we've had 27 successful events to date.
Fantastic. And I mean, COVID's obviously had an impact, but this year it's coming back even bigger and better.
Yeah, I think the 2 years that we haven't managed to run the event has given us time to think about the event and to try and upscale it. And we're delighted to have Aico and Mule alongside us as co-sponsors, which means the event can be bigger and better.
Yeah, it's great to be involved. And really, really pleased that we're able to get involved in it this year. So, Jonathan, tell us a little bit more about the event itself and how your involvement in it. You're very heavily involved in organising.
Well, the event actually started in 1993. That's when we first actually started it. It started from Lanarmon, and we actually had 62 cyclists taking part. It was something we just thought was just something small. Mountain bike challenge and mountain biking was starting to increase, and that grew. We stopped there for 2 years before we moved to our present site, which is in Rulus, which we've held ever since. We're very pleased that Dairy Pack have supported us all the way through all these years, and now it's great now that Aico and Mule have also come on board and makes it a bigger family affair. There's a lot of people involved in mountain biking. People are very keen, and there's nothing better to be getting out there and exercising. We put it. It's a tough route. It's not the easiest of routes, but that's what they want. It amuses us over the years. Actually, the wetter it is, the better for some. Yeah. And we think, oh no. But as I say, that's fine. We don't mind, because at the end of the day, us as a Rotary Club, we're looking that we want to try and raise money for charity. And there's nothing better on trying to put an event on that there's a lot of people keen to do. And this has worked with the Mountain Bike Challenge. Air Ambulance is our main charity that we do support with it. Big element of that is because a lot of that area, you couldn't get vehicles to it. So Air Ambulance is the best item. So that's why a lot of people in that area are very supportive of us, because some of it is on private land. They're very supportive of us putting it on, because they know that money is coming back to the area.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's brilliant. So, James, I mean, you're here in your cycling gear today. You've cycled down here.
Cycled here, of course.
So, you tell us, when is the event happening? It's the
7th of May, isn't it?
That's correct, yes.
And what's the kick-off time?
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock, yeah. I've done it a few times before.
Yeah.
It's a challenge. It's a mountain bike challenge, 21-ish miles. But technically, anybody could do it. So it's not scary. It's all natural countryside. You could do it. You could do it. Now, anybody could do it technically. I mean, it is a challenge in terms of steep hills, a lot of climbing. But we're lucky with our countryside around here. And it's a good event just to come and see where you live. you know, just get up into those hills. A lot of people haven't been up there, you know, and we're lucky to have it here. 21 miles is a long way, but it's a good goal.
Yeah.
It's a good, it's an achievable goal as well. And I think we wanted to mention that it's open to electric bikes as well. So that opens it up to more people. You don't have to be super fit to get around. Bring your electric bike. A lot of people have them now and make use of them, and go and have a go.
Fantastic. And there's a smaller ride as well, I believe, this year.
It's aimed at children, is it, or families?
It's families.
Yeah, which is a good idea, I think. Yeah.
And you're going to be doing it?
Well, I'll be doing the longer one.
Yes, obviously.
But I'm, my son's going to do the shorter one.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to him
I
having a go at
believe,
that.
Yeah, I believe you're looking for about 300 riders this year.
That's the maximum, isn't it?
Yes, that's the maximum that we're looking for.
Yeah. That would be great.
It'd be good if we can actually get up to that point. I'm sure we can. The big advantage of this event is that a Rotary Club tries to marshal all gate points. So riders are not having to get on, get off, throw the bike over a fence to ride on. So we try and target all gate points so we can open and close them. So there's no worry for any rider thinking, oh, if there's any stock in the field or anything like that, have I got to close it? And that's quite important as well for the landowners, that they know that we do marshal the belt very well as well.
Yeah, the last couple of times that we've run the event, we've had about 150 riders. But with new sponsorship on board and a greater reach, we hope to get to 300 riders. And that would be our maximum for the event.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. And I wish you all the very best. Hope it goes really well.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So it's great to hear off Dairy Pack, Mule Cycles and Borderland Rotary. This is such a fantastic event that we're sponsoring, and if you'd like to get involved, please follow the link below.
So next up, we rejoin Tony Boyle for part 3 of our CIH Ideas Lab, looking at will each two achieve net zero in social housing. Let's have a look how they got on.
Simon Rogers, back to yourself. Kind of feeds on for the last question that I did ask you, just around the use of technology. So what information do you feel as a resident would be useful in helping you having that understanding of your home's energy efficiency? So what information do you think would be perhaps useful to know about?
I think when it comes down to the introduction of things like air source heat pumps, and it's trying to find out how much one of those will cost me to run, as opposed to my my gas boiler at the moment. I mean, I know what my annual fuel cost is, but manufacturers and installers of heat pumps, they're very good at saying you're going to save money, but no one's actually putting a figure on it, and that scares me because I manage my heating. I have limited finances. As I say, I don't work. So if my energy costs were to spiral, they probably will after this year if the current situation continues. I know it scares us. We have people that are in their 70s and their 80s, and the information that's out there is pretty scratchy at the moment. There's nothing there that you can grasp and say, well, that's how much it's going to cost me to run an air source heat pump, for example. As I say, I have PV panels on the roof. They were put in by the association. The house itself is insulated probably as much as it can be, but knowing what the conditions are in the house, if they put monitoring systems in, then I think it would be helpful. I don't believe I have many issues. It doesn't seem to affect my health at the moment, so hopefully everything's running as it should do. But the information around the introduction of alternative heating is a concern, because there's none that you can grasp.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Simon. Just back to yourself, David. So are IoT solutions and these two topics which are frequently discussed by your members at your general sort of meetings? Is that a big topic of conversation?
Yes, it is, and that's not going to change. I think you know, in the foreseeable future. I just think that, as I said in my introduction, there's a sort of hesitance at the moment around some of the technologies. I'll probably cheekily take this chance, Tony, to note sort of tangentially relevant to your question, but I've just been, again, looking at some of the comments coming in. I think there's a really interesting issue around, and it'll be the subject of lots of discussion amongst our members, that issue that Simon Roberts mentioned about discretion, and you know, will we lose a bit of discretion one way or the other over implementing EIS2? And I think some of the comments tell me a very, very good reason why, you know, the greatest possible element of discretion for social landlords is really going to be important, and that is that the more pressure we put on social landlords to meet very high standards, the more there'll be disposals. We will get members, will get rid of stock. Lorna mentioned it as something you have to look at if you've got an asset management strategy that looks at certain properties and says they're never going to get to C or B or A or however we measure it. So I think, you know, in some ways, disposing of property, which you totally understand from an individual landlord's point of view, doesn't solve the wider issue. It makes more housing private. So that's the kind of issue that I think our members will be ruminating on for years to come. Yeah.
Again, that disposing of properties and the whole embedded carbon and that is a very sort of hot topic of conversation. And we will know we're not putting enough new builds up to meet supply as well. So again, that's another sort of conversation.
Hi, John. Sorry to interrupt. We've got a delegate, Paul Leask. He's got his hand up, wanting to ask a question. Will I bring him up to stage for you?
Yeah, please do, Jamie.
Thank you.
Please do.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Paul. How are you?
Not too bad. It's just, well, there's quite a few things. I'll try and keep it brief. I wanted to pick up on that. One of the main things is a lot of this decisions that are going to be made in terms of investment, the RSL's point of view, are going to be based on data in terms of our existing data for the stock we've got, but also then modelled data using, in my opinion, a SAP assessment that's not fit for purpose, RDSAP to use to measure things and try and achieve this aspirational band B for an EPC doesn't work. We know that through Fabric First, the approach that we're going to attack is going to be the best approach for kind of securing the property as a one-off investment. I mean, I could quite easily just bolt on PV to all my properties and get them into band B. That just turns me into an electricity supplier rather than improve or reduce the energy demand in a property. And then I've got to factor in the replacement of that PV into my asset management strategy, which ultimately means I've got to put rents up. It's like adding another kitchen into all my properties and replacing this after 15 to 18 years. And I don't see that as a long-term solution. It just doesn't work on so many levels. So Fabric First is definitely the approach we want to take. And in doing that, RDSAP as a tool for modelling it is terrible. It's horrendous. It doesn't take consideration of the air changes that you've got to provide through mechanical ventilation. It can't measure these things properly in terms of the thermal bridging when you remove that and increase thermal performance. I mean, I've done this, I've modelled this on a lot of the properties we've got, and I can spend £30,000 upgrading insulation in a property and I'll get 3 or 4 SAP points for it. And that's just not a true reflection of what the improvement and the benefit's going to be. So that's one bit. For the funding point of view, the Social Housing Net Zero Heat Fund that Simon mentioned that the government's committed to, £100 million, that is a drop in a massive ocean of cost and is not going to come anywhere near the cost of doing this. Within that, there's funding for changing heating systems, and there's very limited funding for doing Fabric First. Now, given that Zest came out, the report to Zest was that Fabric First should be one approach. The government really needs to take consideration of how they're going to support the sector in doing this. And the funding through Net Zero Heat Fund needs to be increased, but it also needs to allow Fabric First as an only measure. I'm in the situation where I've got existing heating systems that are net zero, but I need funding to help me upgrade the insulation in some of the older properties that I've got. And the government needs to seriously consider that.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Paul. Any thoughts on that at all? Simon, maybe?
No, only that I agree in principle with everything that Paul's saying. You know, we need to make sure this funding does what's needed to deliver this. Fabric First is the way forward. So yeah, it's a real challenge, and I think Paul's put his finger on the problem of SAP, the problem of funding. It's exactly where we are, and the more clarity we can give to that, the better.
So I'll just agree with Paul as well. We've just got a project funded through the Net Zero, which is 4 million. I got 2 million from Scottish Government, and that was for changing solid fuel to air source heat pumps, Tesla batteries and PV, but it didn't include the EWI. So I've had to look at my capital fund to make sure that that property can take an air source heat pump. So it's a Fabric First approach, and I'm putting everything in it, and also looking at the mechanical ventilation if needed, looking at the air quality. So it's about making sure, and also the timescales on funding is very tight. So you need to have something project ready to apply for funding. And then it's the requirement to deliver it within an 8-month timescale isn't achievable, especially when you're working with Spain and other delivery partners to upgrade energy networks and infrastructure. It takes a long time for this to happen. So I think there still needs to have big, robust discussions with government about what we need.
Can I come back, Tony?
Aye, please, Paul.
I'm interested because there's a lot happening in terms of renewables at the moment, and David had mentioned earlier that we're all learning as we go with a lot of this stuff. We've fitted heat pumps since the early 90s. Some of the very earliest heat pumps went in up here in Shetland, and they have a role to play in certain situations, but they do have a bigger impact on your asset management costs. And I am terrified to think what your asset management costs and your long-term financial viability is going to be like when you start putting in Tesla batteries, PV panels, and all of this other technology that's eventually going to have to be replaced. And you might get funding just now, but when you start coming to that time when you're having to replace these things, that is a massive cost on your asset management costs going forward. And I just don't see that as sustainable. I would much rather spend the money on a one-off investment in improving the thermal performance, removing the thermal bridging, increasing the air tightness, and on so many levels that's the right thing to do, because it's a spike in embodied carbon now, but then once it's done, you then reap the benefits for the life of the building, and you don't have to add that into your asset management strategy in 15 years' time or whatever. When 10 years, when the Tesla battery runs out, or the cells need to be, and the cost of disposing of these things, and I mean, it terrifies me to think the cost of all of these things once we go further down the line. Let's spend the money on making these houses airtight and more energy efficient, and reduce the energy demand. That's my thoughts.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Paul. Any further comment on that at all? Lorna, there was just one question I know we're very, very short on time. There was one question I did want to ask you, just around the rent evaluation model. I don't know if there's something you'd be able to answer, but as part of a rent evaluation model, if a property is EIS compliant, would you charge more rent than, say, for example, a property that was not compliant or had reached that sort of level? Is that something that you'd be able to answer?
Sorry, my Wi-Fi went off there a wee bit, but I think it was about looking at rent costs for a property that's EIS compliant.
For a property that is more energy efficient than, say, a property that isn't. Exact same property type, but would that have an impact on the rent to the residents?
Presently, no. We look to maximise our funding and profiling of our investment programme to make sure that our properties and archetypes are similar standard. So that isn't something we're looking at the minute, but that's not to say in 5-6 years' time we might have to look at increase in rent to start supporting the Ei168 strategy.
Yep, brilliant. Thanks, Lorna. Listen, it really is a subject we can talk about all day, and I've not made a much a dent in some of the questions that I've prepared. So I'm just going to quickly look at the Q&A section and have a wee look, see if any of these have been answered yet. So first question here: how confident are you that data on private sector housing condition across Scotland is fit for purpose in terms of scoping and driving forward the scale of investment required? I think that is something that would be quite difficult to answer. I don't know if any of you want to take a stab at that.
I suppose the true challenge here is that we're really leaving it, certainly in commonly owned housing, which forgive me for obsessing about, but it is the most challenging. We're kind of really by default leaving it to groups of owners to be motivated enough and intelligent enough to assess the condition of their own place, because we don't have Scottish Housing Initiative. It was always based on a sample, of course, and as you said, Tony, it's a smaller sample nowadays, and we're effectively leaving it to owners to work out what their property needs. But of course, Fabric First starts with crumbling stonework and roofs and things like that before we even think about other more obviously energy efficient sort of things. So it's just part of that public education that you don't meet climate change targets if you've got a leaky roof or rubbish stonework. So but a lot of this is going to be up to owners themselves, and where it's communal, it's groups of owners really working together, and we're a long way from that in some parts of the country.
Excellent, David, thanks for that. Will there be any financial incentives for assisting homeowners? Obviously, again, that's something that might be quite difficult to answer. I don't know if you could, Simon.
Well, there is, it has in 2040, there's a commitment to develop a new scheme of assistance for owners. But, that's very early days. I think there's a recognition that you've got to look at energy support and condition support together. I think that's crucial. One of the problems I have with SAP personally is that it doesn't take account of the fact there's a big hole in the roof that David mentioned. You have two identical houses and they'll have the same score, but the reality is, if water's getting into the building, it's going to cost more to heat it, and if heat is just flowing out of the building, it's going to cost more to heat it, and the impact on climate is going to be worse. And those things, I think, we're not really picking up. I mean, to integrate that so that we're measuring that better, and when the support is there, that we're saying, look, some kinds of disrepair, tackling some kinds of disrepair is an energy efficiency measure, and that needs to be clearer, I think.
Yeah, just a comment here, Stephen Blair. I think the percentage of stock that will be disposed of is being underestimated, as deep retrofit will still not provide the basic levels needed, but demolition goes against the whole principle, which is reality, to be honest, and it was something that we did touch on during that conversation earlier on. One for Lorna here: how are you going to measure the effectiveness of the measures being installed within your properties? Is that something you could answer, Lorna?
Yeah, we're going to start adopting IoT because we're going to need to, measuring air quality, diagnosing dampness and condensation if anything does come off. Any of the measures that we've installed, the only way you can do that is been putting in IoT to make sure it is effective. Other than that, you go ask the customer how much the bills are, which I don't think they'll be too pleased with. Well, you can do that. You'll have some customers that will be quite pleased to show you how much they are saving. But the battery project that we've had previously as well, we were monitoring it, and because it was all cloud-based, you could see how much usage the customers were using at low tariffs, etc. And just having that sign off by the customer, allowing us to view their bills to say that they were saving so much money in kilowatts. So I think there's a package of monitoring that can be adopted, and it's choosing the best one.
Yeah, I think the adoption of those technologies will be crucial and sort of monitoring the effectiveness of any interventions that are made. Just to comment regarding the Niddry Road from Glen Rivers, the project up there, south side. So passive house standard, not accredited due to gas boilers being installed on top 2 floors, and it's 136 grand, and it's not sustainable for anyone. So just around the cost of that particular project, and I suppose the whole process. One for Simon. Simon says RSLs can do now is know their stock, what is possible, and cost benefit analysis if EASH2 changes. Should we still be assessing on EASH2 measures?
I think the big problem with EASH2 in terms of knowing what to do for the future is that you can meet EASH2 with gas, and I think that's not going to be the future, and I think that was what I'd be cautious about if I were a landlord.
Yep. And again, that's a total different can of worms around the future of gas. Land Jardin, renewable energy sources are less responsive than gas, for example. To what extent do residents need support and understanding how to think differently about when they need heat, etc.?
I always think that when it's a very good question, and it reminds me of turning up at holiday cottages in Scotland in the Lake District, and it's freezing, and the instructions say, "Oh no, don't turn on the storage heaters; they'll come on in the night," and all that sort of stuff. And this kind of inability to control and know how to control your own heating. I mean, that is truly critical, and whether it's whatever you're talking about, heat pumps, district heating schemes, it's so central to getting this right. And if we don't give people control that they truly understand, and can operate easily, then we're gonna fail on a number of counts with various types of renewables.
Excellent, thanks, David. Just the last question here on the Q&A, James Ward. Surely it is about time the government make a long-term financial commitment to net zero, which allows RSLs to build in an EASH subsidy into their plans. We also need to consider that for rents. I think that would be a very, very difficult question to answer. I don't know if you've got any comment on that one, Simon.
Well, I think the fact that we've got this commitment to fund over 10 years as a start in that direction, certainly, you look at the way we had in the past, we developed a scheme. Lorna made the point about, in order to take advantage of the schemes, you needed to have projects that are ready to go. We need this funding, and we need more funding, I accept that, but also its stability and consistency in the funding program so that you can plan better and take advantage of these schemes when they're available.
It was really interesting to finish off that CIH Ideas Lab. That was part 3 of a 3-part instalment, so if you missed the rest of them, just go back a couple of episodes and have a look. So next we're going to take a look at our resident app advert.
We're all used to smart devices, but what about smart homes? Aico with HomeLink wants to make all housing smarter. And within these smart homes, we want to put your well-being first. But how does it work? And why would you want a smart connected home? By deploying a suite of sensors and alarms throughout a property, a variety of factors such as temperature, humidity, and carbon dioxide can be measured. Your fire, smoke, and carbon monoxide alarms will also be linked and monitored. This data is then funneled through powerful algorithms, delivering your home's health checks straight to the HomeLink Resident app. Insights like these will enable you to live a safer, healthier life, but also be more efficient and aware of potential knock-on effects. For example, you'll be notified if a particular room is at risk of mould, or perhaps if dust mite allergens are present. You'll also know if the indoor air quality is affecting your productivity, pre-existing health conditions, or if it's dangerously cold. And much, much more. Previously, you'd be in the dark. But with HomeLink, you'll discover these things early and be able to counter them before they even become an issue. It could be as simple as opening a window. The HomeLink Resident app puts you in control of the health and well-being of your home and family, so that you're empowered to take the first steps before needing your landlord to step in.
Next up, our Product Development Executive, Samuel Marston, will be introducing the new 140E series, showing a product demonstration and explaining the benefits.
Hello, I'm Samuel. I'm a product developer here at Aico, and I'm here today to talk over the 140E series, which replaces the older 140RC series. So, immediately, you can see the design changes. So we updated the mouldings to provide a more sleek, more modern look to the alarms themselves, as well as an updated power supply, which brings with it a reduction in the power consumption and a decrease in, as a result, the running costs of the alarm over the 10-year life. For the 146E, we added an updated optical sensor, which brings with it an increased sealed insect mesh to reduce false alarms, as well as dust compensation to further reduce false alarms over the lifespan of the alarm. It also brings a slimmer profile, so side by side the outgoing Ei168RC model, you can immediately see the 17% slimmer profile there. In line with the British standards, we've also dropped the ionisation offering. So where you'd previously fit an ionisation, we now recommend you fit an optical, and that's in line with what the British standard recommends. In the 140E series, the 146E now supersedes the 141RC. The reason being is it's no longer what the British standards recommend. So where you'd previously fit an ionisation, it now recommends the fitting of an optical alarm. So, despite the changes and updates that come with the 140E series, it still remains at the same price. As well as at the end of your old 140RC series alarm life, slide the old one off the base, slide the new one on, and that's all you have to do. As well as if you want to add wireless interconnectivity to the alarms, simply use a 168RC RadioLINK base in place of the normal EasyFit base. The alarms also still use the same PP3 9-volt replaceable battery. So, opening up a 146E, you can immediately see the increased insect resistance on the mesh, as well as the introduction of dust compensation software to reduce the possibility of false alarming and reduce the impact of dust on sensor response time. If you'd like to find out more about the new 140E series, please go to www.aico.co.uk.
So a big thank you to Sam for discussing the upgraded series. As he mentioned, if you'd like any more information, please head to our website.
As always, we're going to finish up with our FAQ. This week it's Dave Jennings, and he's going to tell you all about our Ei170RF deaf and hard of hearing kit. Let's go to Dave now and hear all about it.
Hi, my name's Dave Jennings. I'm one of the technical advisors for Aico. What I'm going to be doing today is to introduce the deaf alarm kit for the hearing impaired. First thing you need to do is to insert the battery into the back of the unit. So if you get to the back of the unit, undo the hinge, and as you can see the battery connector in there. So once you put your battery connector into there, you can then insert the battery into its resting place, and then you can then put the cover back on. Once that's happened, then what you can do then is get your vibration pads, connection, and put that into the back of the unit. This particular unit is a mains powered unit, so it does come with an adapter which then just plugs into your socket. Hence, it's when we'll get you the green LED lights. With it being RadioLINK, it can be connected wirelessly to all your smoke alarms. So once you do get an activation through the alarm, it will then set off the strobe and the vibration pad, which I can demonstrate just by pressing the test button on the deaf alarm kit itself. What you can do is to house code it to the rest of the alarms to the system. So as you can see, there's the house code button on the side. So you just need to get your small testing screwdriver, put your screwdriver into that slot until you get the solid blue. Take your screwdriver out, and it should then flash once every so often. Then you can go into your next device and start house coding.
And that brings us to the end of episode 28 of Aico TV. We'd also like to say a big congratulations to all our finalists for the Community Awards 2022. We're looking forward to welcoming you all on the 12th of May.
And as always, follow us on all our social media platforms. We are on Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. See you next time.